Marcus woke up in a room made of light. For a moment he thought he was dead. The walls glowed soft blue. The ceiling showed stars that moved slowly, like a gentle river of light. Everything was quiet and warm and peaceful. Then the pain hit him, and he knew he was alive. His shoulder burned. His hands throbbed. His ribs screamed every time he breathed. But he was breathing. That was something. A Volante physician appeared beside his bed. She was tall and elegant, with silver feathers and kind eyes. She spoke to him in a language he did not understand, then touched the device on her wrist. A moment later, her words came through in English. "You are awake. Good. You have been sleeping for 3 days. 3 days." Marcus tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Do not move," the physician said. "Your body has suffered much damage. You lost blood. You broke bones. You tore muscles that I did not know humans had." She paused. "You should be dead." "The princess," Marcus said. His voice was rough. "Is she? She is safe. Because of you." The physician's feathers shifted in a way that Marcus was learning to recognize as respect. "The whole palace knows what you did." Over the next few hours, Marcus learned what had happened while he slept. The corrosion attack had failed. Their fleet was destroyed. Their soldiers were captured or killed. The peace summit was ruined, but the Empress and her daughter were alive. And everyone was talking about the human. Stories spread through the palace like fire. The primitive who had held the nursery corridor. The strange creature who had killed 11 elite soldiers with nothing but a pistol and a stolen blade. The alien who had looked death in the face and refused to step aside. Some of the stories were true, some were not. Marcus heard that one version claimed he had killed 30 enemies. Another said he had caught plasma bolts with his bare hands. He would have laughed if laughing did not hurt so much. On the 4th day, the nobles came. They arrived in groups of 2 or 3, standing at the door of his medical room, watching him like he was an animal in a cage. They spoke to each other in their own language, too fast for his translator to catch. But he could read their faces. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. A few looked afraid. One noble, a tall male with dark blue feathers and cold eyes, spoke to him directly. "You are the human who saved the princess." "I am," Marcus said. "Why?" The question surprised him. "What do you mean, why?" She was behind the door. The enemy was in front of it. What else was I going to do? The noble stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and left without another word. Marcus did not understand. He had done his job. He had protected someone who needed protecting. Why was everyone acting like he had done something strange? The answer came on the 5th day, when Empress Celitha herself came to see him. She did not announce herself. There were no guards, no servants, no ceremony. She simply walked into his room and sat down beside his bed like any visitor might. She was beautiful in the way that stars are beautiful. Tall and graceful, with feathers of pure white and gold. Her eyes were ancient and deep, holding thousands of years of wisdom. She was over 400 years old, Marcus knew. Her species lived for 6 centuries. To her, he must have looked like a child. "Lieutenant Marcus Cole," she said. Her voice was soft but carried weight. "I am told you do not understand why my people are so interested in you." "No, ma'am," Marcus said. "I don't." "Then let me explain." The Empress folded her hands in her lap. "My people have lived among the stars for 10,000 years. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have fought wars and made peace. We have learned to calculate, to plan, to weigh costs and benefits in everything we do." She looked at him with those ancient eyes. "When my guards saw the corrosion attack coming, they calculated. They knew they could not win. They knew that fighting would mean death. So most of them retreated to defensible positions. They made the logical choice. But you, she continued, you did not calculate. You saw a child in danger. You saw enemies coming. And you chose to stand between them, even though every calculation said you would die. I wasn't thinking about calculations, Marcus said. I was thinking about the kid. Yes. The Empress smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise. That is exactly my point. You were thinking about my daughter, not about yourself. Not about the odds. Not about what you might gain or lose. Just about her. She leaned forward. Do you know what you have done, Lieutenant? You have placed my house in your debt. And among my people, a debt of this kind cannot be repaid with gold or titles or land. You saved what I value above my throne, my empire, my own life. There is no payment that can balance this scale. Marcus did not know what to say. I was just doing my job. No, the Empress said gently. Your job was to guard a corridor that did not matter. You were decoration, a symbol of the new friendship between our peoples. You had no duty to my daughter, no obligation to risk your life. You chose to do it anyway. She stood. My nobles are arguing about you. Some want to give you wealth and send you away. Some want to give you nothing at all. A few want you dead, because a living reminder of a debt they cannot repay is uncomfortable for them. Marcus felt a chill. Should I be worried? No, because I have been thinking about you, Lieutenant. I have been studying your species, your history, your strange short lives and the fierce way you burn through them. The Empress walked to the window and looked out at the stars. I have been trying to understand why a creature who lives only 80 years would give up even one of those years for a stranger. And I think I understand now. Your people are young. Your species is young. You have not yet learned to be careful, to calculate, to hold back. You still love with your whole hearts. You still fight with everything you have. You still believe that some things are worth dying for. She turned back to him. My people have forgotten how to believe that. We have lived so long that we have become careful, cautious. We weigh every action against every consequence. We have lost something precious, and I did not know what it was until I saw you standing in that corridor. What was it? Marcus asked. The Empress smiled again. Courage, Lieutenant. True courage. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. To put someone else's life above your own. My people calculate. You chose. She walked toward the door, then stopped. Rest now. Heal. When you are strong enough, I would like to speak with you again. I have a question to ask you. A question no Empress has asked an outsider in 9,000 years. She left. Marcus lay in his bed of light, surrounded by stars he did not recognize, on a world that was not his home, and wondered what question could possibly be worth 9,000 years of silence. The palace of Kethala Prime was burning. Marcus Cole pressed his back against the cold stone wall and listened to the sounds of war echo through the ancient corridors. Plasma fire, screaming, the sharp crack of energy shields failing. He checked his pistol for the 5th time in 2 minutes. Still 7 shots. Still not enough. Thought he was not supposed to be here. None of the humans were supposed to be here. Not really. They were decoration. A small diplomatic security team assigned to guard a hallway that nobody important would ever use. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 3 years ago. They were newcomers. Primitives, some of the bird-like Volanti nobles called them when they thought no human could hear. Marcus had heard. He just did not care. He had a job to do. The job had been simple this morning. Stand in a corridor. Look professional. Try not to embarrass the human delegation during the peace summit. But then the corrosion fleet had dropped out of hyperspace, and the orbital defense platforms had failed, and the enemy soldiers had started pouring into the palace like water through a broken dam. Now, Marcus stood alone in a corridor he did not know. In a palace he had never explored, listening to his radio spit static instead of orders. His team was gone. Dead or scattered, he did not know which. The Volante guards, who were supposed to protect this section, had rushed toward the throne room 10 minutes ago and never come back. And behind him, through a locked door made of metal that looked like gold, was the royal nursery. He had found it by accident. Running from a corrosion patrol, he had ducked through a service entrance and emerged in this quiet wing of the palace. The guards at the nursery door had been dead when he arrived. 2 Volante warriors, their elegant armor cracked open, their feathered bodies still. They had died protecting what was inside. Marcus had looked through the small window in the door. He had seen a room filled with soft light and floating toys. And in the center, sleeping in a nest of silk cushions, was a small child with golden feathers and tiny folded wings. Princess Aleth, daughter of Empress Selitha, 5 years old, the most valuable hostage in the galaxy. Marcus had made his choice in less than a second. He picked up a vibroblade from one of the fallen guards, checked his pistol, and took position in the corridor. That was 40 minutes ago. The first Corosians had arrived in a group of 4. They were tall, gray-skinned, with faces like angry insects. They had seen Marcus and laughed. One human. One small human with a pistol and a blade he barely knew how to use. They had not even bothered to take cover. Marcus killed 2 of them before they stopped laughing. The third one he shot in the knee, and then he used the vibroblade. The fourth one ran. More came. 6 this time. They were more careful. They used the doorways for cover. They tried to flank him. But the corridor was narrow, and Marcus had found a spot where they could only come at him from one direction. He made them pay for every meter. His shoulder was bleeding. A plasma bolt had grazed him in the second wave. His left hand was burned from grabbing a corrosion weapon that had overheated. He was running out of ammunition. And still they came. Now he could hear more boots in the distance. Heavy boots. Many of them. Marcus ejected his spent power cell and slammed in his last one. 4 shots. He had 4 shots left, and then he would have only the blade. The child behind him had not made a sound. He had checked on her twice, opening the door just a crack. Both times she was still sleeping. Whatever bed her nurses had put her in, it must have been soundproofed. She had no idea that her world was ending around her. Good, Marcus thought. Let her sleep. Let her have a few more minutes of peace. 12 corrosion soldiers turned the corner. They were not regular troops this time. Marcus could tell by their armor, heavier and darker than the others. Elite soldiers. A kill team sent specifically for the child. Their leader saw the bodies on the floor. 8 corrosion soldiers, dead or dying, scattered across the corridor like broken toys. And at the end, one human, standing in a pool of his own blood, holding a pistol that was almost empty. The leader tilted his head. His insect-like eyes showed something that might have been curiosity. "You are human," he said. His voice was like stones grinding together. "Yes," Marcus said. "You guard the princess." "Yes, you are alone. You are wounded. You have no reinforcements coming." The leader gestured at the bodies. "You have done well for a primitive. But this is over. Step aside. We will make your death quick." Marcus thought about his sister back on Earth. He thought about the nephews he had never met. He thought about all the things he would never do, all the years he would never have. Then he thought about the sleeping child behind him. "No," he said. The leader made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Then you will die slowly." They came at him in a wave. Marcus fired his last 4 shots. 4 Corosians fell. Then he drew the vibroblade and stepped forward to meet them. What happened next would become legend. The Corosians who survived would describe it to their commanders in voices that shook. They would say it was like fighting an animal. Not a clever animal, not a strong animal. Just one that did not understand it was supposed to die. Every time they knocked him down, he got back up. Every time they cut him, he cut them back. He fought with his blade, and when that was knocked away, he fought with his fists. When his fist broke, he used his elbows and his teeth. 7 more minutes passed. The longest 7 minutes in Marcus Cole's life, when the Volante Talon Guard finally broke through the corrosion lines and reached the nursery corridor. They found 11 enemy bodies on the floor. The 12th soldier had fled, bleeding from a wound in his throat, screaming about a demon in human skin, and in the middle of the carnage, barely conscious, holding himself up against the nursery door with the last of his strength, was one human soldier. Behind him, Princess Aleth slept peacefully. She did not know that anything had happened. She did not know that a stranger had given everything to keep her safe. Marcus looked up at the Volante guards. His vision was blurring. His body was failing. "The kid," he whispered. "Is the kid okay?" The guards checked. The princess was unharmed. Not a single scratch dot. Only then did Marcus let himself collapse. He had done his job. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the royal nursery. He was still healing. His shoulder ached when he moved it too fast. His hands were wrapped in medical gel that the Volante doctors said would take another month to finish its work. But he could walk and he could stand, and that was enough. The Empress had summoned him, not to the throne room where she met with nobles and diplomats, not to the council chamber where she made decisions that shaped the galaxy. She had asked him to come here, to this room of soft light and floating toys, where her daughter played. Princess Aleth was smaller than he remembered. Of course, he had only seen her sleeping through a window while he waited to die. Now she was awake, sitting on the floor, building something with blocks that glowed different colors when she touched them. She looked up when he entered. Her eyes were gold, like her mother's. Her feathers were the yellow of fresh sunshine. "You are the human," she said. "I am," Marcus said. "Mother says you kept the bad people away while I was sleeping." "I did." Aleth studied him with the serious attention that only children can give. Why? It was the same question the noble had asked. It was the same question everyone asked. Marcus was starting to think that maybe on this world, the answer was not as obvious as it should be. "Because you needed help," he said. "And I was there." The princess thought about this. Then she nodded, as if he had passed some kind of test, and went back to her blocks. The Empress was standing by the window. She had been watching the whole exchange. "She likes you," Selena said. "She does not like most people. She's a good kid. She is." The Empress turned to face him. "And that is why I have asked you here. I have a question, Lieutenant, and I need you to think carefully before you answer." Marcus waited. "I want you to stay," the Empress said. "I want you to become my daughter's guardian." The words hit him like a punch. He had expected many things. A reward, a title, maybe a place on some committee that would never meet. He had not expected this. "I don't understand," he said. "I am creating a new position. Guardian Ascendant to the royal heir. You would be responsible for Elith's safety. Not just her physical safety, though that is part of it. You would also help raise her, teach her, shape her into the leader she will one day become." "But I'm human," Marcus said. "I don't know anything about your people. Your politics, your customs. You know something more important." The Empress stepped closer. "You know how to care without calculation. You know how to put another person's needs above your own. You know how to be brave. My daughter will rule this empire one day. She will command fleets and armies. She will make decisions that affect billions of lives. And I want her to learn from someone who truly believes it, that every single one of those lives matters. That a princess is not more valuable than a peasant. That power is not a right but a responsibility. I want her to learn that from you." Marcus looked at the child playing with her blocks. She had built a tower now, tall and crooked, and she was trying to balance one more piece on top. "This would mean staying here," he said slowly. "On this world. For years. For decades," the Empress said. "Perhaps for the rest of your life. Aleth will not come of age for another 60 years, by our counting. You would grow old here, Lieutenant. You would watch your home from a distance. You would see your people through screens and messages, but you would not be among them. I have family on Earth, a sister, nephews, I know. I am not asking you to forget them. You would still be able to speak with them, visit them sometimes. But this world would become your home. This child would become your purpose. It is a terrible thing to ask. I know that. You would be giving up your future for my daughter's future. You would be spending your short life to give her the best possible chance at a long one." Marcus was quiet for a long time. He thought about Earth, the blue skies he had grown up under, the smell of rain on hot pavement, his sister's laugh, the faces of nephews he had only seen in photographs. He thought about the corridor, the weight of the blade in his hand, the sound of boots coming closer, the certainty that he was going to die, and the strange peace he had felt anyway, because at least he was dying for something. He thought about the child in front of him, carefully placing another block on her tower, completely unaware that her future was being decided 3 meters away. "Why me?" he asked. "You have guards. You have warriors who have trained their whole lives. Why does it have to be me?" "Because they would protect her body," the Empress said. "You would protect her soul." The tower fell. Blocks scattered across the floor, glowing blue and green and gold. Aleth made a sound of frustration and started gathering them up to build again. "She will fall many times in her life," the Empress said softly. "She will fail and struggle and doubt herself. She will meet someone beside her who knows how to get back up, who knows how to keep building even when the tower falls. My guards can teach her to fight. My tutors can teach her to think. But you, Lieutenant, you can teach her to hope." Marcus watched the princess. She had already started a new tower. This one had a wider base. "What about the nobles?" he asked. "They hate me. They think I'm a primitive." "Some do. Duke Veretos has already filed formal objections. He says your appointment would be an insult to the blood of the Imperium." The Empress smiled, and there was steel in it. "I have reminded him that the Imperium's blood would have been ended if not for you." He did not have a response. "There will be challenges, political battles, nobles who try to remove you or harm you. You would be entering a world of schemes and plots and ancient grudges." "I'm a soldier," Marcus said. "I don't know how to play politics." "Then learn. You have decades to learn. And you will not be alone. I will protect you as best I can. And in time, you will make allies of your own." Aleth finished her new tower. It was shorter than the first one, but stronger. She looked at it with satisfaction, then looked up at Marcus. "Do you want to build with me?" she asked. Marcus looked at the Empress. She said nothing. The choice was his. He thought about everything he would lose. His world, his people, his future. He thought about everything he might gain. Purpose, meaning, a chance to shape something greater than himself. He thought about a sleeping child, and a door, and the simple choice he had made without thinking. Maybe this choice was the same. Maybe the right thing to do was never complicated. Maybe it just looked complicated when you thought about it too much. Marcus walked over to the princess and sat down beside her. "Sure," he said. "Show me how." Elis' face lit up. She handed him a glowing block and started explaining, in the serious way of children, exactly where it needed to go. Behind them, Empress Celida watched. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. 3 weeks later, in a ceremony that made history, Lieutenant Marcus Cole of Earth was named Guardian Ascendant to Princess Alith of the Volanthi Imperium. When the princess placed her small hand in his and called him her shield friend, the nobles watched in silence. They did not understand yet, but they would. In time, they would. 15 years passed. They passed like water through fingers, like sand through glass, like the slow turning of a world around its star. Marcus watched them go and wondered where they had all gone. The first year was the hardest. He did not know the language, not really. He did not know the customs, the politics, the 1,000 small rules that everyone else had learned from birth. He made mistakes. He offended nobles without meaning to. He said the wrong things at the wrong times. Some nights he lay awake and wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. But Alith helped. She taught him words in her language. She explained why certain colors meant certain things, why some gestures were polite and others were insults. She was only 6 years old, but she took her role as his teacher very seriously. "You are hopeless," she told him once, after he had accidentally called a duke's wife a piece of furniture. "But I will fix you." She did. By the second year, Marcus could hold a conversation without causing a diplomatic incident. By the third, he had learned to read the subtle movements of Volanthi feathers that showed emotion. By the fifth, some of the nobles had stopped calling him the primitive and started using his actual name. The assassination attempt came in year 7. Alith was 12. She had grown tall and graceful, her golden feathers darkening to amber. She was becoming beautiful, and she was becoming dangerous. Her mind was sharp. Her will was strong. Some of the noble houses were starting to worry. The poison was subtle. A Volanthi chef, bribed by enemies of the throne, added it to the princess's evening meal. It would have taken 3 days to kill her. It would have looked like a sudden illness. No one would have suspected. But Marcus tasted her food first. It was something he had started doing years ago, despite the nobles laughing at him for it. A primitive habit, they called it. Paranoid. Unnecessary. The royal kitchens were guarded. The food was tested. The servants were loyal. Marcus did it anyway. The poison hit him like fire. His throat closed. His heart stuttered. He collapsed in the middle of the dining hall, and the last thing he saw before darkness took him was Elith's face, twisted with fear. He spent 3 weeks in a medical pod. The doctor said it was a miracle he survived. The Volanthi body would have processed the poison slowly over days. But Marcus's human metabolism had hit it all at once, which nearly killed him, but also let the doctors identify and treat it before it was too late. When he woke up, Alith was beside his bed. She had not left, the nurses said. Not once in 3 weeks. "You are not allowed to die," she told him. Her voice was firm, but her eyes were red. "I forbid it." "I'll try to remember that," Marcus said. The chef was found. The noble house that had bribed him was found. The Empress's justice was swift and terrible. No one tried to poison the princess again. The suitors started coming when Alith was 16. Sons of noble houses. Young males with fine feathers and ancient bloodlines, all hoping to win the favor of the future empress. They came with gifts and poetry and promises. They bowed and smiled and said all the right things. One of them, Lord Kyfton, was particularly proud. His house was old and powerful. He expected the princes to be impressed by him. He was not impressed by Marcus. "Tell me," Kyfton said at a dinner party, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Does your pet human do tricks? Can he fetch things? Roll over?" The room went quiet. Everyone watched to see what Marcus would do. Marcus did nothing. He had learned, over the years, that sometimes the best response was no response. He simply stood behind Elith's chair and kept his face neutral, but Elith's feathers rose. Her eyes went cold. "Lord Kyphon," she said, "you have just insulted the man who took poison for me, the man who has protected me for 10 years, the man who taught me that honor is not about bloodlines or titles, but about what you do when no one is watching." She stood. "You are no longer welcome at my table. You may leave now." Kyphon's face went pale. "Princess, I meant no. I said leave." He left. His house did not recover its social standing for a decade. Later, when they were alone, Marcus told Alith she did not need to defend him. "Yes, I did," she said. "You are my shield friend. Anyone who insults you insults me. I will not tolerate small men who think their blood makes them better than people who have actually earned their place." Marcus smiled. "You sound like your mother." "I sound like you," Alith said. "You taught me that actions matter more than birth, that courage matters more than comfort, that one good person is worth 1,000 nobles who only know how to scheme." Marcus felt his eyes sting. He looked away. Also, Alith added, his poetry was terrible. The war came when Alith was 18. A border conflict with a neighboring empire erupted into open fighting. Thousands of Velanti soldiers shipped out to distant worlds. The Empress spent her days in the war room, planning and commanding. Alith insisted on visiting the front lines. The soldiers needed to see their princess, she said. They needed to know their sacrifices were seen, and honored. Marcus went with her. Of course he did. The shuttle was shot down over a contested moon. Anti-aircraft fire tore through the hull. The pilot died on impact. Marcus and Alith crawled out of the wreckage into a forest of alien trees. With enemy patrols closing in, Marcus had 2 broken ribs. He could feel them grinding with every breath. But he picked up the princess and started walking. "I can walk," Alith said. "I don't care," Marcus said. He carried her 6 kilometers through hostile territory. He hid when patrols passed. He fought when they found him. 3 enemy soldiers died trying to stop him. He kept moving. When they finally reached friendly lines, Marcus collapsed. The medics rushed to help him, but he pushed them away. "Her first," he said. "Always her first." Alith was unharmed. Marcus spent 2 months healing. He never complained. The years kept passing. Marcus's hair turned gray. Lines formed around his eyes. His old wounds ached in cold weather. He was not the young soldier who had stood in that corridor anymore. He was 50 years old, and his body was starting to remind him that humans were not built to last. But Alith was only 20. By Velanti standards, she was barely an adult. She would live another 500 years after Marcus was gone. He thought about that sometimes, late at night. He thought about all the things he would never see. Her coronation, her reign, the empire she would build. He was giving her everything he had, and he would not be there to see any of it. But he would be there for the start. He would be there to set her on the right path. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the palace gardens, Alith asked him a question. "Do you regret it? Staying here?" Marcus thought about his sister, who had died 3 years ago. He thought about his nephews, who had grown into men he barely knew. He thought about Earth, which felt more like a dream than a memory now. "No," he said. "I don't. Why not?" He looked at her. The child he had protected was gone. In her place was a young woman wise and kind and strong. A future empress who believed that every life had value. A leader who would fight for her people, not because it was expected, but because it was right. He had helped make that. Not alone. Not entirely. But he had been part of it. Because some things are worth more than years, Marcus said. Some things are worth everything. Alith took his hand. Her feathers were warm against his skin. "Thank you," she said. "For everything?" "Don't thank me yet," Marcus said. "We're not done." He did not know then how true those words would be. He did not know what was coming, but he would face it the same way he had faced everything else, with the princess behind him and the enemy in front, whatever it took. Empress Sayalitha was dying. The news spread through the palace like a cold wind. The ancient ruler, who had guided the Imperium for 300 years, had finally reached the end of her long life. The doctors said she had weeks, maybe days. And with her death would come change. Marcus stood in the shadows of the council chamber and watched the nobles gather. They spoke in low voices, their feathers twitching with barely hidden emotions. Most of them were worried. A few were excited. And some of the ones Marcus had been watching for years were hiding something. Duke Veretos was one of them. The Duke had never stopped hating Marcus. He had filed objections to the human's appointment 15 years ago, and he had opposed everything Marcus did since then. But he had been careful, patient. He had built alliances quietly, gathered power slowly, waited for the right moment. The Empress's death was that moment. Marcus had spent 15 years learning to read the currents of Volanthi politics. He had made friends among the servants, the guards, the minor nobles who were overlooked by the great houses. He had listened and watched and remembered. Now all of that work paid off. 3 days before the coronation, a servant came to Marcus with information. A guard captain, one who owed Marcus a favor from years ago, confirmed it. A minor lord, drunk at a party, let slip details that filled in the gaps. Duke Veretos was planning a coup. The plan was simple and brutal. During the coronation ceremony, when Alith stood before the assembled nobles to receive the crown, Veretos' soldiers would strike. They would kill the princess, claim she had been assassinated by foreign enemies, and install Veretos as regent to stabilize the Imperium during this crisis. It was a good plan. If Marcus had not spent 15 years building a network of loyal eyes and ears, it might have worked. He brought the information to Alith. She was in her mother's chambers, sitting beside the dying empress, holding the old woman's hand. Sayalitha was barely conscious now, drifting in and out of sleep. But when Marcus entered, her eyes opened. "Marcus," she whispered, "you look worried." "I am," he said. He told them about the coup. When he finished, Elith's face was calm. Too calm. How many soldiers does Veretos have? At least 300 loyal to him personally. More from allied houses. If he moves during the ceremony, we won't be able to stop him with the forces we have here. Can we delay the coronation? That's what he wants. If you show fear, if you run, you lose the support of the neutral houses. He wins without firing a shot. Alith was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Then we don't run. Marcus had expected that. He had hoped for something different, but he had expected this. If we do this, he said, there's a good chance we both die. There's always been a good chance of that. Alith smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like her mother. You taught me that some things are worth more than years. Was that just words? No, Marcus said. It wasn't. Then we fight. The Empress made a sound. Both of them turned to her. Saliva's eyes were clearer than they had been in days. She looked at Marcus, then at her daughter, then at Marcus again. Protect her, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. One more time. Always, Marcus said. The Empress smiled. Then her eyes closed, and she slept. She died the next morning, peacefully, with her daughter beside her. The coronation was scheduled for 3 days later. Marcus worked those 3 days without rest. He called in every favor he had. The human diplomatic corps, much larger now than it had been 15 years ago, thanks to relations he had quietly helped improve, agreed to provide security support. The guard captain who owed him a favor positioned his soldiers in key locations. The servants who loved Marcus agreed to watch and report any movement by Varithus's people. It was not enough. Marcus knew that. Whatever happened, blood would be spilled. But maybe, just maybe, it would not be Elith's. The throne room was full on the day of the coronation. Thousands of nobles had gathered to witness history. They wore their finest clothes, their brightest feathers. They did not know that many of them might die today. Alith walked to the throne. She wore a gown of white and gold, her mother's colors. She looked beautiful. She looked like an empress. Marcus walked behind her, as he always had. His hair was gray now. His body ached. He was 53 years old, and he felt every year of it. But he was still her shield friend. He was still standing between her and harm. The ceremony began. Ancient words were spoken. Sacred objects were presented. The crown, a circle of light that had been worn by 100 empresses, was brought forward. Varithus made his move. The doors burst open. Armed soldiers poured into the throne room. Nobles screamed and scattered. The Talon Guard tried to respond, but they were outnumbered and outpositioned. Varithus himself strode through the chaos, his dark feathers gleaming, a sword in his hand. "Princess Elith," he called out, "you are charged with crimes against the Imperium. You will surrender yourself to my custody, or you will die." Alith did not move. She stood before the throne, straight and calm, and looked at the Duke with contempt. "The only crime here is yours. Varithus, treason, murder, the betrayal of your oaths." Strong words for a dead woman. Varithus raised his sword. Then Marcus stepped forward. "You'll have to go through me first," he said. Varithus laughed. "The pet human. I should have killed you years ago." "You should have. But you didn't. That's going to be a problem for you." Behind Varithus, things were happening. The human diplomats had drawn weapons. The guard captain's soldiers were moving into position. The servants were opening doors that should have been locked, letting loyal troops flood into the room. Marcus had prepared. He had planned. He had done everything he could. But in the end, it came down to this. One man between the princess and the traitor, just like it had been in the beginning. "Stand aside," Varithus said. "You are old. You are tired. You have no chance against me." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but I'm still standing, and you're still not past me." Varithus attacked. He was fast. Faster than Marcus could ever be now. Younger, stronger, trained in combat from childhood. His blade moved like lightning, but Marcus had something Varithus did not have. 15 years of watching, learning, understanding how the Volante moved and thought and fought. He had sparred with the best warriors in the palace. He had studied their techniques. He knew their weaknesses, and he had one more thing. He did not care if he died. The fight was ugly. It was desperate. Marcus took wounds that would have stopped a younger man. A cut across his arm. A slash on his leg. A strike that cracked ribs that had never fully healed from the shuttle crash. But he kept fighting. He kept standing. He kept putting himself between Varithus and the princess. And then, when Varithus overextended for a killing blow, Marcus moved. The blade went through the Duke's throat. Varithus fell. His soldiers, seeing their leader dead, faltered. The loyal forces pressed the attack. In minutes, it was over. Marcus stood in the center of the throne room, bleeding from a dozen wounds, surrounded by the bodies of traitors behind him. Alith was unharmed, always her first, always. The coronation resumed. The crown was placed on Elith's head. She became Empress Alith I, ruler of 1,000 worlds. Her first act was unprecedented. She descended from the throne. No empress had ever done that during a coronation. The nobles watched in shock as she walked to where Marcus knelt, bleeding but unbowed. "Marcus Cole," she said, her voice ringing through the silent room. "You guarded my life before I knew its value. You gave your years so I can have mine. You bled so I could rule." She reached down and took his hand. "I cannot give you back your years. I cannot give you back your world. But I can give you this. You are no longer my guardian. You are my shield father, now and forever. Your line will be noble. Your name will be remembered when the stars themselves go dark." The nobles stared. A human, raised to nobility. A primitive, granted a title that would last for millennia, thought it was unthinkable. It was impossible, but no one objected. Not now. Not after what they had seen later, in a quiet garden, away from the ceremony and the politics. Alith sat beside Marcus. Doctors had treated his wounds. He would live. He would heal. Again. Was it worth it? She asked. "Giving your life for mine?" Marcus watched the sunset. The colors were different here than on Earth. Stranger, more beautiful. He had grown to love them. "Kid," he said, "I didn't give my life. I spent it. Best investment I ever made." Alith leaned her head against his shoulder. Two people from different worlds, different species, bound by something older than the stars. Not duty, not obligation, not calculation. Family. Marcus closed his eyes and listened to the wind in the alien trees. He thought about the corridor, all those years ago. The locked door. The sleeping child. The impossible choice that had not felt like a choice at all. He had done his job. And now, finally, the job was done. But the family would last forever.